Greetings, Ms. Hudson. How are you? This is Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay. Are you there?
I am. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I just got your notification here on my end
Great.
to switch into the Spanish channel. Is there anything you need me to know? If not, I'll go ahead and switch.
You will go ahead and switch because I think we're fine unless you have any questions.
No
I
questions.
think straightforward, same as before. We're glad you're back as always.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice to hear you. I can't see you, but
I
it's nice to
know.
hear you.
You too. Alrighty. I'm just going to
All
mute
right.
myself until more people join. But let
No
me check
problem.
with Tamika. Tamika, let me check your mic because you are speaking tonight. So I just want to make sure that you're all set.
You talking to me, Loretta?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure that your sound was okay since you
Okay.
are presenting tonight. So
Thank you, ma'am.
good, good, good. You sound fine. Thank you.
Huh? Did it, did it just cut off?
No, you sound, I can hear you just fine, Tamika.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, I can hear you.
I'm actually trying to mute it.
Oh, okay. Yep, I hear all of your sighing and everything. Hi, Dan. I just want to test your microphone. I heard it turn on. That means it's working.
Well, that's good. I plan on saying a lot.
Very good. How about you, Mr. Walsh?
Can you hear me now?
Ah, yes, sir. I can hear you. Thank you.
Asha, are those pearls?
These are cowrie shells.
Wow.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan, for being here. Thank you, Lindsay, our Spanish language interpreter. Good to see you.
Asha, Lindsay's in the chat. She said thank you. She's already switched over to the
Perfect,
interpretation
okay.
room.
Brad, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Asha. How you doing?
Okay, everyone, we'll begin in 1 minute. Please remain muted unless you're speaking. Hi, Arvin, thank you for joining us. Loretta, is Joe Jaffe on?
Again, not yet, but he will be joining.
Better be, or we're going to kill him.
Okay, at 6 p.m. we'll begin. Good evening and welcome to the Queens Community Meeting with the Nysha Federal Monitor Team. We're so glad to see all of you here this evening. On screen so far, you'll see several members of the Nysha Federal Monitor Team, as well as some representatives from NYCHA. And we will be asking that if you care to speak, that you raise your hand or so indicate in the chat, and we will move you over to the speaker's room and ask that you raise one issue or ask one question, and then go back into queue so that we'll have enough time for everyone to ask any questions or make any comments that they have. And if we have time, we'll be glad to call on you again. So the way our evening agenda will work, we'll hear opening remarks from the NYCHA leadership team. Joe Jaffe will make some remarks, and we may hear from Dan Burnell. And we'll have some welcoming remarks from Tamika Williams-Moore and myself. And we'd like to thank, you'll see two members of NYCHA's senior leadership, Brad Greenberg and Arvin Sohini, who are here to observe the meeting and to take back any issues or concerns. They'll be taking good notes. We ask that the focus of tonight's discussion be on systemic issues, pillar issues. The pillars are lead, heat, mold, elevators, and the like. So you've heard us talk about the NYCHA pillar issues. And we unfortunately can't address individual concerns. If you're having a problem with your particular unit or apartment, we ask that you bring those concerns to the CCC. It is important that you call in those concerns though, because we are also tracking concerns and complaints that go to the CCC, but tonight's not the proper place to address those individual units. That said, if you have systemic concerns with your development as a whole, your neighborhoods, we discuss those issues. So with that, I will now turn it over to Joe Jaffe to introduce himself and to give some opening remarks. As many of you know, because we've sent out copies and posted on our website, the Monitor's quarterly report came out recently. So Joe will talk to some of the highlights in that. Joe, please.
You're on mute, Joe.
Mute.
Good. Sorry about the technical glitch. Asha, thank you very much for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Joe Jaffe is my name. I'm on the executive committee of the Monitors team and work with the other Monitor team members to try to improve what's going on in Nysha for the benefit of the residents who are there. On behalf of Bart Schwartz, the Federal Monitor, we want to thank all of you for being here this evening. We recognize that all of us are busy, but we believe having regular conversations about Nysha business is important, particularly as things start to reopen after the COVID system and we work toward the end of the pandemic. On that note, we see that the Nysha Family Days are rescheduled now for this summer, and these are important because celebrations for the development communities and life together is very important for everybody in the city, but especially in Nysha after the COVID restrictions. As you know, and as Asha has told you, tonight is a Queens community meeting. And I want to emphasize that we want to prioritize hearing from Queens residents and Queens community group members, and we want to focus on Nysha issues from Queens developments. Now, there are many members of the Monitors team on the call, so we look forward to having a good interactive series of discussions. As Asha advised you, the Monitor team just issued its quarterly report, which focused on several Nysha issues and concerns. And as we start this evening's discussions, we want to focus and highlight on the Nysha city-funded capital action plan. This is the latest of many action plans we've worked with Nysha to put into practice and to complete. For those who don't know or haven't read about it, the plan is required under the HUD agreement, It stems from the city's commitment to HUD, to the Southern District, and to Nysha to provide Nysha with $2.2 billion in additional capital to fund over 10 years a host of various projects, that 10-year period beginning when the monitor first started in 2019. Specifically, the HUD agreement requires that Nysha draft an action plan that provides details of how it's going to use this $2.2 billion. And it also requires that the monitor approve the plan before it be considered. As the monitor has said to you in the past, I know Bart has on a number of occasions discussed with you the fact that having ideas and aspirations for improvements to get things done is a beginning. However, it's to accomplish and implement what you want to accomplish needs a comprehensive plan, an action plan, if you will, that tells you who, what, where, when, and how the goals are going to be implemented and accomplished. This is particularly important when, as here, Nysha is going to be getting millions of dollars in capital annually for the next years, and everybody wants to make sure the money's spent wisely. The proposed work addresses the deficiencies that the HUD agreement stated were going to be addressed, and that the work's properly completed. Now, more specifically, under the HUD agreement, the city's obligation is to provide $2.2 billion in capital funding, and that's broken down as follows. The city has to provide $250 million per year for the first 4 years, and thereafter $200 million a year for the remaining 6. And while the funds can only be used for capital projects, that's not for staffing, that's not for salaries, that's not for operational expenses. Nysha is given some latitude to how it would use the funds. The city funded capital action plan is the document that Nysha puts together to lay out its plans for this $2.2 billion with construction schedules and total resources and the sources of the funds that are needed to accomplish what's proposed. Now, over the course of months, members of the monitor team worked with Nysha to ensure that the plan objectives were sound and consistent with the HUD agreement obligations. Finally, the HUD agreement requires that the monitor approve the plan, which process included the monitor and the monitor's team consultation with both HUD and the Southern District. The Nysha funded city capital action plan is now available both on the Nysha website and on the monitor's website, and we urge you to take a look at it. A quick summary of the plan indicates that it commits Nysha to complete specific projects in all the agreement pillar areas. Just a reminder, those pillar areas are lead-based paint, mold remediation and abatement, heat and elevator services, pest and waste management services. There's a particular focus on lead-based paint and mold capital projects. The largest of the percentage of the funding is going to go to that. And the plan will provide significant funding for projects related to increasing the lead-based paint abatement, starting with the units where children under 6 either reside or visit on a regular basis. A core aspect of this action plan is Nysha's complete infrastructure rehabilitation of 2 selected developments, where both lead-based paint is present and mold is pervasive, and neither can be addressed selectively. The work is going to include new bathrooms, kitchens, certain heating and elevator related work, other replacements such as windows, doors, floorings, grounds improvement, prevention of flood, reduction of pest population, and improvement to community centers. The proposed developments that are going to get this complete work are located in Staten Island and in Upper Manhattan. Importantly, focusing on just the two developments, that's going to be Toad Hills houses and in Staten Island and St. Nicholas houses in Manhattan, will enable us, HUD, and Southern District to test Nysha's ability to effectively manage and complete large-scale capital projects. That's important. It's essential that if Nysha's to succeed in obtaining the large amount of federal funding sought, over 40 billion, in the blueprint for change, that this test project work out and that be established. Now, that's not the only thing that's happening. Nysha's making capital investments in waste management facilities in 324 sites at 197 developments. To this end, there's going to be an investment in waste yards, equipment replacement, upgrades to secondary waste stations for trash recycling, bulk waste, and interior compactor replacement. The capital action plan also includes replacement of elevators and heating systems to address the commitments in the HUD agreement, which requires replacement upgrade of those systems throughout the city. Just as a summary of the funding allocation, lead abatement and comprehensive mold, $450 million plus. Lead abatement in a phased program, $771 million. The heating, $50 million at two developments. The heating also in four other developments, $121 million. The elevator, $34 million. Waste management at 324 sites, $563 million, with a contingency of $207 million for a total of $2.2 billion. Now, there's other discussions that's going to be had. I'm sure you're going to have questions. The point is that the monitor is working, trying to work, and I think effectively working with Nysha, with HUD in the Southern District, to help Nysha get the money it needs, but to help put programs in effect and put plans in effect to improve the quality of life for the people who live at Nysha. And that's the most important part. So that's the opening for the evening, Asha. I turn it back to you. Thank you.
Joe, thank you for giving that detailed update on the capital funding programs. Really important. So we're glad to see the influx of money focusing on these important issues. I'm sure folks in the audience may have questions about that, so we look forward to that later in the evening. I wanted to take a few moments to thank and acknowledge everyone for joining us. Thank you for registering in advance and for sending in some really good questions. If you have questions or comments to make this evening, please indicate in the chat that you would like to speak. And please indicate what development you're from and if you're a Queens resident. For this evening, Queens are our VIPs. So any Queens resident will go first in line to speak. And we thank everyone else from other boroughs for joining us. And there will hopefully be time for you to speak as well. We've used this format in other boroughs and it's worked well. We are finishing our series of Zoom community meetings. We're doing Queens tonight, and up next we have the Bronx. And then hopefully things will be better and we can resume in person. But we thank everyone for being flexible and joining us on this Zoom format this past year. It's been good to see everyone. And in fact, I think it may have allowed more people to join that may not have had the opportunity to travel to whichever development we were hosting at. So we encourage you to please continue to be engaged with us via Zoom. Let us know though, if you would like an in-person visit, we're starting those. Our investigations team, Alfred Baldino's team, has never stopped going to all of developments, even in COVID. So just so you know, even though you didn't see these meetings happening, our work on the ground in every single development still continued. And so we have stayed abreast of the many issues and concerns that everyone is still facing at your developments. So Again, remember the ground rules. We're asking that everyone please keep their comments to a 1 or 2 minutes maximum. I apologize if I cut you off at the 2-minute mark. We're trying to get as many speakers as possible because the purpose of this meeting is really for us as the monitor team, who are the team leaders in many different areas. We have our elevator and heat leader, our pest and waste leader, our investigations leader, our compliance leader, our all of the different mold lead leader, all here to hear your concerns, to learn from you. So please let this be as interactive as possible tonight. So no shy Zoom flowers, please speak up. So with that, I have asked Tamika Moore-Williams to please take the lead in opening the floor to our residents. Tamika had been a member of our CAC and has now been elevated to an advisory member. And now Mr. Manny Martinez, who will also give a welcome for us, is a member of our CAC. So we'll hear from both of them next. I've asked them also to just tee up some issues and concerns that they know Queens residents are facing, and to just put those on the table and let's talk about some of those issues. So, and I'd also like to thank and acknowledge other members from our CAC. I see Katie Brennan here and Nancy Ortiz. Katie is from the Deputy Mayor's Office, and Nancy Ortiz is also an advisory member of our CAC. And I see several members from the NYCHA Monitor team and NYCHA Executive Leadership. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to thank and acknowledge the many resident council presidents that we have on the line. We really appreciate your leadership and your developments, and we know it's been a heavy load. You've particularly during COVID and all of the work you've been doing and all the outreach work. So thank you for your continued leadership. I see many names that have been with us even in other boroughs, and so thank you for your continued interest in following the work that the monitor team is doing. We ask you to please help us. This is a two-way street. You can call us, email us anytime. We'd love to hear from all of you, even on one-on-one. Just let us know. We really have an open door. And we'd also like to thank the members of CCOP who are on the line and have been fearless leaders in the NYCHA community as well. And if any of our CCOP members would like to speak, please just let us know. We will also move you to our VIP line. So we're really grateful to have so many VIPs in the house tonight. We look forward to hearing from Queens residents, and we'll start with you, Ms. Moore-Williams.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. And thank you for attending this meeting tonight. I won't take up much of your time, but I do want to give you the Queens Wrap Report, okay? A survey conducted June 25th, 2021 to July 7th, 2021. 100% of the development survey report leaks and mold. And DOB's Local Law 11 Cycle 8 facade inspection states that 2/3 of the development surveyed have unsafe or swamp conditions. Swamp, I'll give you what that means, safe with a repair or maintenance program, okay? So you may see sidewalk sheds going up, or they should be going up. So those repairs can be done to the facade of the building because they are unsafe, and they do attribute to the leaks and the mold and the crumbling of the walls that you see in your apartments. Pest and waste. 100% of development survey report vermin, and 2/3 of those developments have garbage drop sites near the entrances of the building. As a pillar, pest and waste management is a primary focus for the monitor team. And we will be piloting a resident ambassador program that is resident-led and resident-driven to push for cleaner living. How is that done? Well, in several ways. One is resident education, and another is resident empowerment. And so we look forward to working with the residents of all of NYCHA's developments. Thank you, Asha.
Tamika, thank you. And thank you so much for your work with the NYCHA Monitor team. Mr. Martinez, please give us a welcome and some thoughts that you've been hearing.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, rather, and thank you or for having this here for Queens and for having me on this CAC panel. It's definitely an honor to have these discussions. Primarily when listening to the capital investments that are to be made, that's coming from the city, just $2 billion, and looking at Section 3, the amount of work that this is going to actually generate, and the obstruction that there is, the massive obstruction that there is in Nysha with regards to training and employment and contracting, right? There's a requirement for Section 3 business concerns to be recognized and given business to, and this is not happening. And Section 3 business concerns are different than MWBEs. They are separate, and they can be to both. Section 3 business concern can be an MWBE, but a Section 3 business concern is a Section 3 business concern, and they're not being acknowledged. Currently at South Jamaica Houses, we have an exclusive combined contract of $43 million with an expectation of 9 jobs. That is ridiculous. And that's an exaggeration of exploitation. There's no training, and contractors had expressed that they will not train. And the excuse behind this is the project labor agreement. In the current project labor agreement, Section 3 is specified, and the hiring practices in regards to hiring union workers is also specified. And there's no restriction to hiring Section 3 residents at the capacity required, either under the old Section 3, Part 135, or the new Section 3, Part 75. That is a huge obstruction and restriction and negative impact to our communities. Chief Barrera at one meeting said that it's 4 times more, a person is 4 times more likely to be shot in a public housing development than they are in the city. And this massive obstruction to economic opportunities, be it through employment, training, and contracting, is a part of the reason why. And so we really have to put attention to that. And the second thing is local developments, local management at our developments need to have a better assessment of community safety, and ensuring that the community is not burdened with unnecessary risk to their safety, to their ability to walk through the developments, and for them to be not threatened by just artificial structures that are being created, right? That these contractors are not creating places, making places more dangerous, and that the local leaders, the local property managers and their staff are not neglecting the concerns, the relevant and consistent and persistent concerns of the households. That is something that is not being focused on, even with this transformation plan. And so accountability is the reason for that is the lack of accountability. And so I will conclude with that. Section 3 is a big issue. Ensuring the safety of our communities from the property managers' perspective is something that needs to be held up to a standard, and accountability needs to be seen. We see a lot of these issues and we don't see people getting terminated. We don't see people getting chastised or penalized, rather, not chastised, forgive me, penalized for these issues. And this is a great concern to us. So I want to thank you for listening, and I look forward to resolving these issues. And congratulations to Ms. Moore-Williams for your success, and keep it going. Queens is proud of you. Thank you. All right. Take care. Thank you, Ms. Mordro.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. You brought up some really important points. Particularly, I see an issue in the chat with regards to safety and security. I know in talking with residents, that's typically the #1 issue on concern, because you want to be able to come in and out of your apartment safely, have your family be safe, your kids, grandkids be safe. And that, as you know, is not a pillar issue. It's not part of the monitor's agreement, but it's such an important issue. It's one that the monitor has brought up to Nysha, to HUD. Our team is working on, our investigations team looks at those issues as well. So I'm happy you hit upon that important issue. And it's one of the things that we've discussed also with the NYPD and CAC and the FDNY as well, so that they can address those important issues. So accountability, that's another important one that we talk about almost in every single pillar and issue, and particularly as the implementation plan is getting rolled out, the accountability piece is typical and is critical. And the Section 3 piece is an important component. And I appreciate you being an expert in that area and highlighting that important issue as well. So thank you. And so now I hope that our line is forming. Please let us know in the chat if you would like to speak, and we will move you over. And I'll ask Floretta to let me know if we have anyone ready to speak from Queens.
Sure. We're going to start with Teresa Scott. She has a question. She's from the Rockaways. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yes, hi, my name is Teresa Scott. I'm from Reverend Houses. Lately, there's been a lot of shootings out here in Far Rockaway. And I was wondering, like, what kind of programs can y'all set up to assist with making us that we are safe out here? Because they're just doing a lot of random shooting, just killing people. There was a couple, even in Jamaica, they've just been killing people. And when we go to our board meetings and we speak to the manager, they say that, you know, they're working with the police, but nothing hasn't happened. And there's been several shootings lately in the Rockaway. Also, the other issue that I'd like to discuss is that how can y'all be accountable to the contractors that you're hiring? Because a lot of these contractors that are hiring, they do the work, but no one comes by and check to make sure that what they're doing, because like we had some work done here and the work was terrible. And when I went to speak to the worker that was doing it, the first thing, and I don't have a problem speaking to the person, I don't have a problem with hiring someone who's a minority, but they could not explain to me what they were doing, and they did not speak enough English for me to ask them any questions about what was going on, you know, what they were doing, because they were painting our benches. And like the next couple of weeks, but the next month, the benches were like 2 colors again. So what was the purpose of hiring someone to pay all of that money to get our benches paid, and then the benches look like they never got painted? So those are my 2 statements I'd like to make.
Thank you so much, Ms. Scott. Again, the safety issue is critical, and also the contractor accountability. You know, I'm going to ask Joe to address that issue. Is there something that the monitor is doing to look at the accountability piece, particularly as it relates to the work of contractors?
The answer is,
Hello.
the answer is that we are working with both the quality assurance and environmental health and safety and compliance units to deal with vendor accountability. There are a number of programs that they're putting into place. They have not succeeded as far as they need to, but there is some improvement in the accountability. If Redfern has that issue, if we could get a call with a few more details, we will make sure that we will put to the quality assurance unit that particular group of contractors and have somebody take a look at it, because that's not a single issue. That's an issue that reflects throughout Nysha. The ability to make sure contractors do the work they're supposed to at the price they're supposed to, when they're supposed to, and somebody makes sure it gets done. So if we could get somebody to forward that to us or get a call, we will follow up on that.
Thank you. And thank you for that those good questions and comments. Floretta, who's next?
We have Doris McLaughlin on the line. Doris, if you can unmute.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good evening.
Okay. Doris McLaughlin, Oceanside Apartments. So I think the question was regarding mold, mildew in our several developments. As it relates to Oceanside, I can't say that any resident has brought to my attention about mold or mildew in their apartment. What I'm not understanding is, why is it that the resident council presidents are being asked about where the mold and mildew are in the apartments of the residents that they represent? And why is it that NYCHA does not have this information? And why isn't NYCHA being asked what apartments are the mold and mildew is in? Because we here at Oceanside, first of all, we do not have an office. We have not had an office since 2012, since Sandy. So us not having an office, we do not really have access to the residents in the way that a lot of the other developments have, because we do not have a place that residents can come, a place, a private place where they can come and speak to their resident council leaders to let us know exactly what is going on in their buildings as it relates to infrastructure, mold, mildew, asbestos, safety. I mean, you know, we get calls from a few residents, but in most cases, a lot of the mass of residents, we are not able to reach because we do not have an office and haven't had one since 2012. And this is our biggest dilemma. So
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin, because you raise a really important point, and it's a systemic one. You know, NYCHA should be the source of the information keeping. The onus shouldn't be placed on resident leaders to know which units are having particular systemic problems. We do have our leader for the monitors, mold and lead team, Dennis Walsh. Dennis, do you know anything more about this?
Doris, I would tell anyone who has a mildew mold situation, a leak in their apartment, to call the CCC. That is the most direct way to report a problem. Have NYCHA categorize the urgency of that problem, particularly with respect to leaks from above, where there are strict rules about response times. The CCC will log the complaints. You will, under the HUD agreement, expect to see an inspection done in your apartment within 5 business days of the report being made to the CCC. And you will receive an inspection report from the inspector regarding root cause and the work orders that he or she prescribed to address the situation. And if at any time you feel that NYCHA is not responsive, I invite you to contact our office. You can get all that contact information on our website, nychamonitor.com. We routinely handle complaints from people who feel frustrated for whatever reason about the response. But with respect to reporting the mold, I would also ask people to not delay. If you think you have a mold situation, if you think you have a leak starting, make the call, put it on record, and get NYCHA out there to do the inspection and an assessment of what needs to be done in your unit.
Asha, if I can sort of add to what Dennis said, you know, I think as probably everybody on this call knows, because of their relationship with NYCHA, if a work order isn't created, there's really no possibility that the problem is ever going to be resolved. So really accentuating what Dennis said, whether it's mold or anything else, the first thing to do is to call the CCC and make a complaint, because that will automatically lead to the creation of a work order. So that now at least, you know, it's sort of on the list of things to be addressed by NYCHA. As everybody knows, that doesn't in itself guarantee that it's going to be handled properly, but without a work order, there's really no chance at all that it'll ever be addressed. That's the process.
So are you saying that I need to put a work order in as it relates to us having an office as well?
No, my suggestion is that whenever a resident, you know, tells you about a particular problem, whatever it is in their unit, that they're the ones, because it's their unit that's involved, to make sure. That's great that they tell you as as a resident leader, but it's really critical that they call into the CCC and make a formal complaint to Nysha.
Right, but my point is they're not telling us because we have no office for them to, I mean, they could call us, but a lot of the residents, since we've been in office, a lot of the residents here are not really as engaging with us as they were before Sandy. We had more resident engagement in terms of residents letting us know what their issues were in their apartment. And I think that a lot of residents, as it relates to mold and mildew, I don't know if a lot of residents know that that is something they they should be doing in terms of calling the CCC for mold and mildew. I don't know if they know this, if that's something, I don't know if I don't know. I think that they think the only reason why they should be calling is if they have a leak, if my toilet is backed up, if the floor, as it relates to mold, mildew, asbestos. I don't know if residents are aware that they need to be calling the CCC for that issue.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin, because you make many good points. One, it sounds like it's a separate issue that Oceanside needs to get an office for you. Two, it sounds like the awareness around the mold and mildew issue needs to be increased, that calling in does have a benefit. And you make a good point, though, that you would think that NYCHA would also be aware of those types of pervasive conditions in certain buildings or units. And that's my question to Dennis. Dennis, do you know if that's something that, say if there's a routine inspection on that or another issue, is NYCHA keeping a record of any pervasive mold or mildew, or know that, if there's a particular pipe problem in the F line, mold and mildew issues are going to continue to be pervasive? Like,
what I can say is if a NYCHA employee is in one of the residents' apartments for whatever reason, and he or she observes a mold or leak condition, they should create a work order. But in the absence of that direct observation, the work order system is based on reporting. NYCHA doesn't scour the developments looking for situations. I mean, there are inspections, there is some oversight, but it's really incumbent upon the resident to, at the earliest possible stage, report to the CCC, because that becomes a live fact that's in Maximo. And that's when the process starts. So it's a bit of power that the residents actually have to be vigilant, to be on guard for the incipient, the beginnings of mold and mildew and leaks, and make that call. The sooner you can do that, the better for you, and it will be in the system. And if you don't like the repairs that are made, you can report them to our office, you can report them to NYCHA, or you can report them to the Ombudsman call center, which is another telephone number available to residents as a result of the Baez class action case regarding mold, where a special court-appointed person will look into complaints about work that was not good enough in the estimation of the resident. So there are options, but it's really important that word gets spread about the power that residents have, and in some respects, the obligations to make sure that they report conditions as soon as possible.
Thank you again, Ms. McLaughlin, for that important issue. I'm going to now move to our next question, but if you have another piece of that, let us know in the chat, and then we'll try to circle back to you. Floretta, who do we have next?
Next, we have Eugenia Gibson. Ms. Gibson, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, good
Hi.
evening. Okay, good evening, everyone. Again,
Good evening.
My name is Regina Gibson. I am the resident council president of Beach 41st Street in Far Rockaway. What I have a big problem and have had this problem, sewage. At the time, as I'm speaking to you now, I just came into the building like about a half an hour ago. And in the lobby, you actually see the raw feces and everything that's coming up in the lobby. Okay. Management is aware of this. Okay. It's an ongoing problem. We have construction work that's going on here at the development. I've seen them doing something. I don't know what they're doing as far as the sewage. They said that they were taking care of it. But like I just said, I just came into my building and the lobby, you see the feces coming up.
Ms.
Okay.
Gibson, would you repeat the name of your development?
Beach 41st Street. And we're in consolidation with Oceanside. But this is it's a health issue. It smells so bad. And I'm telling you, you actually see it. It's coming up. First thing I did when I came in was called the 707 number, got a ticket number. They said that they was gonna take care of this in 24 hours. In 24 hours, somebody needs to be out here now. Somebody needs to be here now, because just standing in the lobby waiting for the elevator to come upstairs, you will get sick. You will get sick. And it's an ongoing thing. It's not being fixed. For over a week now, you see the water running from my building to the street. And this is the sewage that is coming up.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. You raised another important point about, when there's a emergency condition in a building, even the 24-hour answer isn't sufficient. And I don't know if we have anyone from the team who's looking at that type of timing and accountability. And then the more specific issue is making sure Beach 41st Street is getting addressed on this big issue.
Yes.
Anyone speak to that?
Well, maybe Brad or Arvin on Nysha's behalf can make a particular note. This is an urgent situation and look into it right away.
Yeah, Ms. Gibson, I've taken a note, and I'll get in touch with our emergency services department. You said it's Beach 141st Street, right?
Beach 41st Street.
Okay.
And it's building 438.
Okay.
Building 438.
You are right that there's a decent amount of construction ongoing there, but it doesn't mean that there should be a problem overnight like that. So I'll get in touch with our emergency services department and check in.
Okay, thank you so much. And our elevators, I'm listening to the money and stuff that's gonna be allocated to the developments. Beach 41st Street has been up since 1973. We have not had no new elevators. The elevator opened up and you actually see the elevator jumping, moving up and down, up and down. Okay, they constantly have the elevator technicians coming out, if not every day, it's every other day, to fix these elevators. We need new elevators. We need new sewage. We need new elevators. We are scared to get in the elevators because you're scared that you're gonna get stuck in the elevator. And I'm telling you, when the door opens, you see the elevator jumping, moving up and down. You have to wait for it to stop doing it before you enter the elevator.
That's another scary and emergent condition too. And I know we have Nysha taking notes, Dan Burnell, who's on our elevator team leader, taking notes. And I assume obviously CCC knows, since they are sending someone every other day on this. And the elevators, you know, that's one of the pillars, because that is a pervasive problem throughout Nysha. There's so many old elevators that jump or aren't working. So thank you for highlighting that important pervasive concern. And thank you for bringing the sewage issue to our attention as well. Floretta, who do we have next?
Okay, we have Miss Thomasine Reyes, and Miss Reyes, go ahead and unmute. She's from Queens.
Hi, hello everyone.
Hello.
You can hear me.
Hello. Yes, we can hear you. Good evening.
Okay, how are you? I'm Thomasine Reyes. I'm from the Westside Houses. I am the treasurer for the board. And I basically have 3 situations that are, like, to me, getting out of control over here. And one, as many say, is like the safety. We have apartments in several buildings that are very heavy drug activity. Majority of the tenants for those buildings have reported this to the office. And it seemed like literally nothing is being done. They doing raids, but they doing raids to like the same apartments over and over that are not the ones. And they're overlooking the ones that are having the very heavy activity. And you got all hours of the night, people coming to the buildings. And my court alone, they had just 5 nights in a row, guys with dirt bikes coming in the development to the buildings, and you can hear the roar, roar, roar. And then you see them right outside like it's no big deal, exchange the drugs. And on top of that, then they pop wheelies like, so what? I have it on me. Nobody's gonna do anything. And my thing is, the cops are around, floating around when it's quiet and people are just playing ball on the bench. And then when that activity is happening, like, they're not out there, they're on the other side. You know what I'm saying? And then when you report this and you call them, by the time they come, the guys be there and then they take off, and it's like they just sit there and watch. Like, we need more security that's going to actually take care of this situation, because it's out of control. Okay? They break the doors, which cost housing millions of dollars, if not billions, fixing those locks. They know how to pop those locks. Okay? And that's one situation. The second situation, I would like to talk about some of the workers that have the buildings. On the weekends, the regular worker that has it, when they're off, whoever's scheduled to the building, they won't even come in the building. So whatever activity and whatever happened that night, I know, you know, it's the tenants. I'm retired from housing, so I know you still have to come in and do your job. They don't even come in the buildings. Sometimes they don't even go on the compactor because you can hear the machine running all night long for the whole weekend. You call it in, you report it, it just continues running. I see the SOCs outside. I let them know, listen, my building has XYZ going on. I'm hearing tenants that are stopping me and saying about this, and that with their buildings. Can you please check it out? Weekend is coming on, and the situation still has not got taken care of. So I'll go to the office on Monday to speak to someone else. And it's like it gets passed around, but nothing takes place. You know what I'm saying? And as a tenant and a board member, I feel like we deserve better. I know there's a lot of tenants that are messed up, but there's a lot more that are decent. And we should not have to sit there and suffer for those who are degenerates. Excuse the way I put it, but it's just the truth. Okay. And
So, yeah.
The other part is these tenants that are barbecuing on the grounds. They're barbecuing on housing grounds. They're taking the charcoal, they're throwing it down, they're leaving a mess, and it's not fair to the workers either. You know what I'm saying? You got your good workers and you got the lazy ones. But no matter what, it's not fair that you sit there and you literally make a disgusting mess as if they're your maids. That's not right either. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
If the caretaker is reporting this to the supervisor and the supervisor is supposed to be reporting it to the manager, why is nothing being done? because this is going on every day, every weekend, as if they got a license to do this. And it's just not fair. You know what I'm saying? Something got to be done. In order to get this to stop, they got to make an example out of someone for them to realize they're not playing and it's going to take place. The last thing I have, and I apologize.
Three really important issues. Oh, I'm sorry. What was your last concern?
The last one that I have, and this is the last one. They've been putting out notices about all these bikes that's chained up outside and inside the buildings. First, it was June 1st, they're going to remove them. Then it's July 1st, they're going to remove them. July 1st came and gone, and these bikes are still here. No one has come around to collect any bike. Okay, and that's another thing. As long as they don't do what they say they're going to do, it's going to continue to happen because they're taking it as it's a joke. Housing has to get firm and put their foot to the ground and keep word for what they write. If they write down, if the bikes are not removed by the 1st of July, we will have them removed. Then they have to come and they have to remove them so these people know that it's not a game. And this is getting out of control. My court alone has like 3 bikes in it and 2 bikes in the hallways. A lot of other ones have about 15 bikes in the courts that are chained to the gates, like that's their personal garage. You got the ones with the motor that has gas that are chained on the grass, and you see the electrical cord coming from the person's apartment. Why are those people not getting called in and that wire not getting cut to let them see that bike is going to get snatched, that bike is being snatched up, and you're now coming in and you have to pay a fine or something? Because it shows clearly where it's coming from. You know what I'm saying? And once you're not doing nothing, they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, you hit an important point about accountability in both ways. Thank you so much for raising these important concerns. And we're all taking notes. Thank you so much. Floretta, who's next?
Thanks, Asha. We're going to call Anastasia Harris. Can you unmute Ms. Harris?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I do not particularly have any questions at this moment. Any comments? I am a Brooklyn resident. I live in Tompkins Development, and I see a lot of safety concerns, a lot of drug distribution in my building. They break the doors consistently. My fob key does not work. This has been an issue since I moved in 2 years ago. And the building is not monitored. There's a lot of activity of young adults and young teenagers in and out, or just hanging out in the hallways, all types of hours of the night, smoking, drinking. And what I do see in my developments, more or less, is the same as any others, with our maintenance crew being overwhelmed. We have residents that leave their garbages in the hallways, in the elevators. And we do have a severe rodent and pest control within this development as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris, for bringing these concerns. And I know you said you're in Brooklyn. Can you repeat your development?
Yes, ma'am. Tompkins Houses. And that is one of my biggest concerns is the safety issue and the coming and goings of the residents, companies, and it's a lot. It does, we accumulate a lot of trash, a lot of builds up. There's just like a lot of alcohol bottles and a lot of paraphernalia within the developments consistently. And it seems like it is extremely overlooked.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing that to
us. I
us.
was calling and you called, I got booted out.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, if you're not speaking at the moment, please mute. And Floretta, please let us know who's next.
I got it.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Brown, please proceed.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to address Ms. Teresa Scott's concerns, and I think this will be an opportunity for Arvin and Brad to introduce community policing to her development. That's number one. Number two, identify if there are any police officers living in the development getting those discounted rents. And if so, perhaps they can work with the tenant association president and Ms. Scott to resolve some of the issues. The other thing I wanted to mention, there is a public hearing. Nysha's having a public hearing on the agency plan on July 27th. And I ask all Nysha residents to go to the website to look at the agency plan and comment, respond to it, write your concerns, ask your questions. They are required by law to respond. This will be another means to address your needs. And my final question to Attorney Muldrow and the monitors team, we spoke in May, and I invited Mr. Swiney to come talk about the 964 and to provide the residents and the monitor team training in that regard. And Mr. Swartz said he had to look over some things and he would get back to us. So it's been more than 2 months or almost 2 months. Does anyone have an answer? Attorney Muldrow?
I'll ask that question to Dan Burnell. I know he is was in that meeting. I don't know the status of follow-up, but maybe we can call directly.
And license fees. Yes, merchant fees when you pay the credit card company for using the MasterCard, depositing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, I don't know who's talking. So the only thing that 964 isn't.
Hi, it's Edna. I can respond to that.
Was that Edna?
Yeah, hi, it's Edna. I can respond to that.
Good, Edna. I didn't even know you were on the call.
Yeah, I'm on the call. So we had the meeting with Mr. Swiney, and Mr. Schwartz was on the call, and we did thereafter talk in terms of how we can get Mr. Swiney connected to the new Chief Procurement Officer, Sergio Panique. And so we've given that exchange of contact information to Mr. Panique, and we're going to be following up with him regarding that aspect of the 964. We also had a presentation by the Chief Procurement Officer, where he talked about the change in direction of procurement to really increase MWBE Section 3, and they're very well aware of 964 and have made that part of their planning going forward. So it's in NYCHA's plan as they move forward. And as I said, we did have the meeting with Mr. Swiney.
This is Joe. The rest of that, the follow-up to that, following those meetings, there is a plan being rolled out by procurement and by compliance to deal with the 3 programs to increase the participation by Nysha in those. So the points made were well taken and are being followed up. It's not a matter of that it's been ignored.
Okay, thank you for that. But let me be clear or ask for clarification. My question specifically is there going to be training, as we discussed in that meeting, 964 training for the monitor team and for the residents and for NYCHA's upper management? That's my specific question.
I think.
Hello?
I think, Ms. Brown, the answer is there will in the future, but not immediately, be further training. The bulk of the work in those three programs is much more in the hands of Nysha than it is in the hands of the monitor to administer to
Okay,
the
well,
resident.
thank you. Then I will follow up with Arvin about the possibility of training for the 964 then. And how is NYCHA redoubling its efforts to address the blueprint, the transformation, since that has been put on hold? Will you be meeting with the residents to find out why the residents oppose the blueprint? What you can do to get them on board with the blueprint? Mr. Sohini? Arvin?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I won't speak for the chair entirely, but I do think that given the pause, given sort of the obviously lack of passage of the trust legislation this year, there is sort of a moment now to really go back and start from the beginning and talk to residents again about what are the actual needs here, what are the concerns, what went wrong last time. And so I do think the chair is very committed to really starting that process over again in earnest and really sort of meeting with every resident leader, every resident who wants to talk about this issue. So I think the plan between now and the next legislative session is very much to do that, Mrs. Brown. So you're absolutely right. But I'm happy to give you a more specific answer from him if you'd like on sort of his plan for engaging in that way.
Thank you, sir.
And Mrs. Brown, you can also include me on an email if you'd like, and we can get you hooked into definitely the next time where the chair wants to talk about the blueprint with residents. I know that's happening kind of regularly, so we can get you hooked into that. And also thanks for the thoughts on Redfern houses and community policing. I've taken that note as well, and we'll follow up with Ms. Scott.
One of my questions in the agency plan, I submit questions every year, and it's usually about 23 pages. And I don't always get all of the answers, but I think I'm going to bring to your attention now. I think the residents would like to know how many police officers are residing in the developments, and if the residents know that they are police officers, and if so, are they involved in community policing within those respective developments? Thank you.
Yeah, we can find that out.
Thank you, Ms.
Typically,
Brown.
just so you know, Ms. Brown, typically if you are a resident in a development, you are not assigned to the precinct in which you're a resident. That's an NYPD policy that typically, but yeah.
But I certainly would like, them to be identified and let the residents know that they are there, and so that they can be helpful.
Yeah.
Because that's their community too.
For making so many important points. We really appreciate your valuable contributions. Thank you again. And thank you for setting up the meeting with Mr. Swiney as well. We really appreciate you. Floretta, can you please tell me who's next?
Yes, we have Jane Chappell on the line. We were having some technical issues, but Jane, if you can hear me, if you can unmute.
Yes.
There you are. Yes, I can hear you.
Good evening. My name is Jean Chappelle. I am the recording secretary on the board for Woodside Houses. And I have the correspondence secretary next to me who had a question. Abel?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Okay, my name is Mabel Walker. I'm a resident of Woodside Houses. I'm a correspondence secretary here. Yes, my question is, if they can afford to pay someone to clean these scaffolds, why can't they afford to pay someone to do the job and take the scaffolds down? Because that's where a lot of the problem is coming from.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little. Can you repeat the comment?
I said, if they can afford to pay someone to clean the scaffold, Why can't they just pay someone to do the job? But that's where a lot of the problem is coming from, is with these scaffolds up here.
Now, that's a really good point with the ongoing problem with scaffolding up, sometimes for many, many years. I know that that's a pervasive concern throughout NYCHA properties. Do we have anyone that can address that?
Ms. Chappelle, you said you're at Woodside Houses?
Yes.
Okay, well, it's the contractor's responsibility, but which building, is there a particular building where maybe the scaffolding needs to be cleaned?
Well, they clean them,
Yeah,
but if they can afford to pay someone to come in and clean them, why can't they afford to pay someone to fix the problem so they can come down?
there is like a bit, I mean, one of the things we can always talk about, there's a large capital deficit and facade repairs are required to take scaffolding down. And facade repairs are one of the most expensive kinds of repairs and NYCHA simply doesn't have the funds always to necessarily do the facade repairs. So whenever we talk about the kind of looming capital deficit, that is a good example of a place where we could use a big influx of money to help repair some of the facades. But it's a good question. I'm glad to hear that they're at least cleaning them. But yeah, ideally, we'd be able to do the facade repairs to take the scaffolding down. I hope that answers your question.
Not really, because when they have someone to come in and clean them, next month it's a different company.
Right.
And
They'll take the scaffolds down and put them right back up with a different company. That's wasting money.
And the scaffolding we've heard and seen, they also create a lot of the safety and security issues too, some more of the waste issues, more of the vermin issues.
Yes.
It's a big cycle. It's a big cycle. Thank you for raising the important points, Jean and Mabel. We appreciate you being on the line. Anyone next, Floretta?
Yes, we promised to circle back to Doris McLaughlin. So Doris, you can go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr.
Okay. So I heard, I don't remember the lady's name who was, I think she was a guest of Teresa Scott, I think. She spoke about the police. And I just wanted to say that I know that we have NCO officers. I believe each development in the Rockaways have, like for us, I think, I know Redfern, I believe Beach 41st Street and Oceanside, we are under the 101 precinct. So each development we are assigned our own NCO offices in which we have monthly meetings with them. So I just wanted to say that. So then the other thing was that going back to the mold and the mildew, is that because someone was saying, about I think it was the two gentlemen in which I can't see their names. So, but they were speaking about that when residents have mold, or if residents have mold and mildew in their apartments, that, once they notice it or recognize it, that they are to call the CCC number. And my thinking on that is that residents, like, we're not giving classes on mold and mildew, like how it looks, what is it looking like. So I don't know if residents are aware of what mold and mildew look like to know that that's mold or that that's mildew, and that's something that they need to be calling the CCC about. So that's what I wanted to circle back around to say, that I don't know if residents are aware when they see mold and mildew, that they know that's what that is.
That's a really important point, Ms. McLaughlin. Thank you for raising that. And again, you had hit that point before, but thank you for highlighting this aspect. Just not even the awareness of calling, but an awareness of exactly what it is and how to identify it is important too. Thank you for making that important point.
Oh,
So-
and I also wanted to say, I'm sorry, that we do not have inspections here. We do not.
Okay, that's an important point to note, and that's Oceanside. Okay, and so now I just want to make clear that we are open for questions beyond Queens. We have heard from Brooklyn residents and other boroughs. If there are other questions, please indicate in the chat that you would like to speak. We're kind of making our final rounds. Floretta, do we have anyone else in line?
Yes, this is Mrs. Brown. I have my hand raised. And so I wanted to speak to Ms. McLaughlin. I introduced a suggested to Nysha 6 years ago to integrated pest management training for residents. And this way the residents would learn how to identify pests, mold, etc. I don't know, I guess Arvin and Brad could answer if this training is being provided to all of the residents. If not, why not? Because that's a concern. My other issue is with regard to verticals, the police going to different developments, going up and down and checking the halls and so forth. I don't know if verticals is something that's required by Nysha or the respective precincts. Do they coordinate that? I don't know what is the norm now. Perhaps Arvin or Brad could speak to that regarding verticals. Is it a development issue, or is it a precinct issue, or is it a Nysha requirement? And Ms. McLaughlin talked about inspections. I would hope that Nysha would want to protect their inventory and have inspections every year. Section 8 residents have inspections every year. Are the public housing residents exempt from yearly inspections? Thank you.
With regard to the annual inspections and FAS inspections are required both under the agreement, under the action plans, and under HUD regulations. They were suspended because of the COVID period. The annual inspections have been reinstituted by Nysha commencing, I think, 2 months ago. Brad, if I'm wrong, tell me. And it's estimated they will try to do approximately 70,000 inspections per year. And with that goal in mind, those annual inspections have recommenced. The separate FAS inspections have been suspended through 2022 by HUD. And so those inspections are not taking place.
Thank you. I had my inspection 2 weeks ago. Now, what about the verticals with the police department?
You know,
Is
Ms.
that-
Brown, I've spoken to the NYPD about this, and I ask the question regularly, and we have been advised that they are doing verticals and that has continued. But we do have a representative from the NYPD that sits on our CAC committee, and they give the crime statistics, and they talk about their practices in Nysha housing, and that's what we have been advised. But if you aren't seeing that or experiencing that, certainly your precinct person should know, because we've been advised that that's something that should be happening. And then I saw that Berg put a comment in the chat. If you could speak to that, please.
Sure. For Ms. McLaughlin, I'm looking as you're speaking, and we definitely have done some mold inspections at Oceanside. So it is an ongoing thing. I think one of the things that Nysha's been trying to do in the last couple of months is do a lot of outreach to resident leaders and directly to residents about how to identify mold in their unit. because we recognize it isn't easy to know when a mildew problem has kind of escalated to be a real issue. So I put in the chat a link to a booklet that was developed by Nysha that hopefully will help show what mold looks like, when it can be dangerous, and hopefully you can pass it on to some folks at your development so they can continue, because it looks like folks at Oceanside have been pretty diligent about reporting mold complaints, and we've been doing some inspections every month. So if you want to keep that going, that's hopefully a good resource to look at to identify mold. And then Mrs. Brown, there's lots of training happening on integrated pest management. So I'm not sure if we have maybe done a good enough job training residents, but a lot of NYCHA workers, every kind of title needs to be trained on integrated pest management. But I know the monitor team is working on a program around resident ambassadors for pest management. So maybe that's a good opportunity also to stay engaged. It's a really important issue at NYCHA, obviously.
Yes, it is.
And I'm sorry we didn't listen to you when you first raised it.
Me too.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Okay, Floretta, who do we have next?
I think we're coming down to the end, Asha. I know that Manuel Martinez had some comments in the chat. Mr. Martinez, do you want to give comments, and then we can circle back to Ms. McLaughlin, who has a final comment?
Well, yes, I wanted to refer to Brad's this current statement of IPM training for the employees. And we have so much construction or a focus of that and a solid investment going into that. Why is that IPM not being offered to the residents, especially with regards to Section 3? And I know that Section 3 isn't a pillar of I know that it isn't a specific pillar for the monitor, but it's definitely a part of the agreement where the compliance department, the 3 separate compliance departments are to be created in collaboration with the federal monitor. And so now these compliance issues, which does not seem to have gained traction with these compliance departments being formed, we have to bring that attention. So now this IPM, when it comes down to Section 3, training is a part of that mandate, right? Training is not optional, and it's either left to NYCHA to do the training for the specific contract, or or for them to hire a contractor that does the training. So why isn't the IPM being expanded to include residents?
We do actually, Mr. Martinez, we do actually have a program within Reese that does train folks, residents, to be exterminators. They start out as pest control techs and then graduate to be exterminators. And I think we hired in the last class almost 20 residents to do some of that IPM work. And there's lots of IPM training involved. So if you're interested or know people are interested, I can find out when the next class of training is for IPM for residents, and maybe you can shoot me an email and we can connect folks to that opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I would like to say that, 20 is I understand that they may
Not
be
enough,
training, but 20 is a non-existent number when you look at the population of public housing. We're talking about a population larger than Tampa, Florida.
Yep.
20 is not an acceptable number. Having a pilot program ran across 10 developments is not an acceptable pilot program. And these token symbolic gestures is not making any impact. We really need to put a true focus on resolving this issue. This issue isn't hard to resolve. It's just hard for NYCHA to put a focus on it. And it seems that it's hard for anyone else to get NYCHA to focus on it. And this is becoming a true blue problem for our community. And so I appreciate you for listening, and I hope that we can resolve this with intent.
Mr. Martinez, there's a new procurement manual that just came out with a new head of procurement, and they have, together with the compliance department, they are pushing and really starting to enforce the Section 3 in that hiring. I'm not saying it's going to happen immediately, but I know it's being rolled out, and it's been broadened in terms of to what contracts it applies. So I can't tell you exactly where it is, but I know that in the new manual that came out, it's an integral part of the manual to emphasize the Section 3 and the MWBE hiring.
And I appreciate that, but I also want to take this opportunity to bring again another focus to Section 3 business concerns, especially when you're focusing on the procurement process. So with the procurement process, the main focus should be on getting more Section 3 business concerns involved. Currently, Nysha has a list of, I believe, a little over 70 Section 3 business concerns, and they're not being utilized, not properly, and for some, not at all. And so this is definitely a surefire way that is mandated in policy that would get training and employment within the community from contractors that are from the community, have knowledge with the community, or share a cultural experience with the community. And this is very important. When we don't see that in our development. Currently, I have 2 separate contracts at this development exclusively worth $43 million, and there's only 9 jobs. I only have 1 person right now working. And the way that Reese is managing that employment process, because they have no consideration for Section 3 business concerns, but the way that they're handling that employment process, they're allowing the contractors to pick how many people they're going to hire. And then the contractors make those positions inaccessible to the community, and they are not providing any training. And Nysha is being complicit in that. And the other cornerstone to their obstruction is utilizing Reese. They say Reese does all of this, and Reese has not shown any competence. And I don't say this in any kind of hyperbole. They have not shown any competence to maintaining or ensuring compliance in regards to Section 3 hiring at all. They are approving notices, Section 3 notices that violate the old Section 3 rule. And being that the new Section 3 rule doesn't have a specific identification as the old one did, the old one tends to carry over. I've seen that happen in other housing authorities across the country who are now engaging in that Section 3 clause. They're creating a new one to ensure that these notices stay relevant. Nysha needs to be a part of that trend, being that Nysha has the largest population in the country, a population that outsizes Tampa, Florida. This is not a small population. And so we really have to isolate the key issues that are really affecting our communities. Thank you so much, Mr. Walsh. I appreciate the information, and I look forward to the new procurement process.
Absolutely, really critical issue. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. And I think we wanted to circle back to a couple more folks, Floretta.
Yeah, so Doris McLaughlin, Teresa Scott, and then Mrs. Brown has another comment. Go ahead, Doris.
Okay, so I did want to also bring up the fact that here at Oceanside that that we do have chip paint. There is chip paint in all of we have 14 stair halls, and on each every hallway floor hall there is chip paint. So I did want to mention that. Also, I wanted to ask when so I also wanted to ask when inspections are done, is it only for certain apartments? That was one. I also wanted to know, why isn't Nysha sending out booklets to residents regarding mold and mildew? Because the young man, I don't know his name, the one that's sitting there with the headphones. He did not say his name, so, and I can't see it. He mentioned something about he was going to put a booklet in the chat or something to that knowledge for me to, give out to the residents, but I don't think that I should be giving out booklets on mold and mildew to the residents. Yes, I have a concern about mold and mildew because my understanding is that that's falling under, under the monitor's job, out of the, 7 to 8 things that he has to cover, as it relates to mold, mildew, elevators, and I guess whatever the other 5 or 6 things are. Being that I was focusing on mold and mildew I think that that is something that NYCHA should be doing. I don't think that we as resident leaders should be giving out booklets to the residents when NYCHA can send out booklets to the residents via email or via them, having one of the assistants from the office to, come to the center and we pick them up like they did with the key fob. But I don't think that that's something that, because as I first said, I go back to what I said, we do not have an office. If we had an office, that could be a possibility. If we here at Oceanside, if our resident council had an office, we would certainly, be more apt to do that. But with the assistance of NYCHA, printing up the booklets and the amount of booklets needed, because we don't even know, what the number of booklets that are needed. So I think that NYCHA, we are resident councils. We're supposed to be partners of NYCHA, but right now we're not feeling like a partner of NYCHA. As it relates to RAD, PAC, Blueprint, as I first said because it came up, I think Mrs. Brown brought it up, because I think there are people in this meeting from RAD, PAC or Blueprint, am I correct? I mean, as it relates to the 5 developments on the peninsula, we're not interested in RAD, PAC, Blueprint, any of these things. We are interested in NYCHA, in the federal government, the city funding public housing, Section 9. So, the other the other question or maybe comment that I wanted to say was that we have 14 buildings in Oceanside. 6 of them have resident watch rooms. 6 of the 14 buildings are being have resident watch captains in them and co-captains. And we are being told by the resident watch captains that the officers are signing the books, but they are not doing verticals and horizontals. They are not. And we also have a homeless problem. We have a mental issue in a couple of the buildings where people are hanging out. So that is a safety, police, Department of Health, Department of Mental Services, and we need these services in our development. I mean, we have a lot of issues, and we do not think that RAD, PAC, Blueprint is the solve all to this issue. We don't believe that.
All really important points, Mr. McLaughlin. Thank you. There are a number of people who might want to weigh in. I'll give opportunities if there are any responses.
Ms. McLaughlin, it's Brad. My name is Brad. I'm I guess the young person from NYCHA, and I agree with you that it's on NYCHA to distribute the materials, and you'll see a lot of mold materials probably. If you haven't already, you'll see a lot of mold materials. So it's definitely on us, but if you're interested in reading it before some other folks, it's in the chat as well.
Great, thank you. Floretta, who's next, please?
Teresa, you can go ahead. Teresa Scott.
Yes, hi, good evening. Thank you for listening to me again. I'm from Reference House. I'm the correspondent secretary. What I wanted to say is that we do have issues with people do hang in the street, but a lot of reason why our kids and different ones, because we don't really have a lot of programs out here and stuff for people to do. So you're going to have a lot of crime. You're going to have a lot of people out here doing crazy stuff because we don't have access to good programs that could assist them. And the ones that are out here, if you don't, well, I'm not able to walk up and down the street, but if you don't, it's not like no community paper, whatever, to say, hey, I got this program, unless you just happen to go to an event. You don't really be exposed to even know what's going out. So it's a lot of miscommunication as far as us getting help that we need. because like Mr. McLaurin, there's a lot of homeless, there's a lot of people sleeping in our buildings. Not only that, it's like even with the tenant patrol, when we had the tenant patrol, it was a little bit more safe because people, we was watching who come in our building. But from what the last meeting that I was in, they said the tenant patrol was not allowed back. So maybe it's something new. Maybe I was not aware that it was back. But tenant patrol definitely is needed. But we also need to know how to deal with the police, because if the police, like I was outside yesterday, I'll give you an example. I was outside yesterday and about 6, 7 cops came, but they were not nice. They were very aggressive and very with a nasty attitude. So if these are the cops that's policing our community, I don't want to be bothered with them, because I didn't feel intimidated because I trust God, whatever. But the point of it is that they were not nice. They was giving us looks. And we were just sitting down on the benches, laughing and having a good time. The kids were playing. As a matter of fact, the kids were driving. One of the cars was driving so fast that a parent had to get in front of the police car and say, "Hey, stop! Don't you see the kids?" So if you have a cop on your board, I would like you to go and let them know that this is the kind of stuff that we do. Because why should we have to have aggressive cops policing us? We already got enough stuff out here about cops. So it's like, it does not make people want to be comfortable with having police in their housing complex if they're aggressive. Because these cops that were out yesterday were very aggressive. And they actually like come right in front of us. And I was like, Lord, is there going to be an incident with police? Am I going to be an incident with a police? That's what I was saying in my head. And it must have been 20 kids that was right in the area. And the young lady literally had to get in front of police. So if we're going to do community policing, we need to have some police who is more friendly, that's coming in reference houses. I don't know about other places, but that are friendly with us. Not police that have aggressive attitude coming to our buildings. That's not safe, and that does not make us welcome them. I know the police talked about they want to do some nice stuff with us, but we need some people that are not so aggressive coming to our building. And we need tenant patrol back in reference. That's possible.
Important point, Ms. Scott. Thank you for that, because having the police presence can be a double-edged sword, and it's really important that the safety be paramount. Okay, we are coming to the end of our evening. We appreciate everyone for sticking with us. We do have a great turnout. And I'm just wondering if we have any more questions up. If we haven't heard from you yet, please indicate in the chat. And we will, although this meeting is ending, we invite anyone who's interested to come to our next meeting, and always to keep in touch with the monitor team. At this point, I'm going to ask that we also put up our contact information. And Floretta, do we have anyone else in line?
We have Mrs. Brown, and then we have Beverly McFarlane that just joined or just raised her hand. So I definitely wanted to get to her. But Mrs. Brown, do you want to give
Yes,
us your comments?
yes, thank you. About 7 years ago, Gail Brewer, as borough president, had a roundtable with police officers from the Bronx and North Manhattan, and with young people in the area. And it was so positive for everyone, because it gave the police officers an opportunity to listen differently, to communicate differently, to meet some of these young people one-on-one, and older people, to talk about our needs and our concerns. And as a result, I still have lasting relationships with some of these officers from that roundtable. So perhaps, Ms. Scott, a roundtable could be done with your precinct and other precincts to address some of these concerns, because they're real concerns. And a lot of the police officers need more psychology training, if you will, to better understand the various environments, and to learn compassion and embracing understanding as opposed to tolerance. Now, I'm changing subjects. I want to thank Mr. Martinez regarding his points on Section 3. I support your comments that you've made. I want you to know that I've talked with Arvin Sohoni about Section 3, and I trust Mr. Sohoni is going to work very hard to improve these changes, to recommend various changes so that NYCHA would be compliant. Because as it is today, Section 3 program at NYCHA lacks compliancy. And so, Arvin, I hope to talk to you soon so that we can further discuss how to make all of these goals a reality. And also to the monitors team, I think these quarterly meetings are very important, but it's the outcomes and the follow through that's going to make a difference. And thank you so much for listening. I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. We really appreciate you. Ms. McFarland, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I am not a resident of Queens. I'm a resident of East Harlem. I'm the resident council president for Taft Houses. Good evening, everyone. My comment is that I just want to find out what bucket of money is being spent from Mr. Russ that hired this $1 million consulting firm to knock on doors, to give out, to try to encourage residents, and by bribing them with new kitchens and baths with the blueprint for change. I would like to find out what financial bucket is that coming out of, because it just seems like a conflict of interest that we are not getting our repairs done in these developments, but yet he can hire a consultant firm to knock on door to encourage residents to say yes to the blueprint for change. Also, when we call in the 707 number, they encouraging residents to say yes to the blueprint for change. So this just seems to me that is a bullying tactic of, if you want your repairs done, then say yes to the blueprint for change. It's a better opportunity for you guys. That's why you should go to RAD and PAC. So I'm just really concerned about how we are being treated, and NYCHA is still getting HUD money. It's like they are saying they are not, but they are still being funded by HUD. And they had already removed 1/3 of their stock to RAD and PAC, but yet we still are not getting, the conditions are still being the same.
You bring up really important points. Can anyone speak to that?
Hey, Ms. McFarland, it's Arvin Sohoni here. I don't know who that firm was or what they were doing, but I'm happy to look into it and get you an answer to it. So I can ask and get you an answer directly on that question.
Yeah, because if they moved most of our housing stock into RAD and PAC programs, which is private entities, then that's extra resources that can do for the people that's still underneath the housing stock, you know? So it's just not seeming like that anything is getting better. And that's why I don't believe the blueprint for change is a good idea for NYCHA, because if they are going to have an opportunity under the trust to get bank loans, I don't think they will be responsible to pay it back. And I believe that these housing, public housing, will now belong to banks because they have failed to fulfill their loans. So again, people better wake up, and housing council presidents better wake up, because if you go into RAD and PAC, you don't have the same, we won't get the same, we're not covered by the 964 regs. So that's just my statement.
Thank you, Ms. McFarland. And can you repeat which development in Harlem? Did you say Taft?
Yes, and also this the last statement. I mean, we are also under the same. We don't have a community center. I don't have a community center on this development. I don't have a basketball on this development, and we have no resources on this development to make sure that we are engaging residents and empower residents. So we are left to and during the COVID, we was left to handle this all this on our own. So I commend every resident leader out there that been there through the crunches, and we are unsung heroes, and we should be recognized because we were there. And housing workers was in their cushion houses in Pennsylvania and in Jersey while we were doing their work.
You really are the unsung heroes. We are truly thankful for all of the resident leaders because you really have been carrying a really heavy load this year, particularly in COVID, but always. You guys are asked to do so many things and wear so many different hats, and we salute you all. And we thank so many leaders for joining our call, for staying engaged, for following these issues. And we know that there are some official leaders, and then there's also some unofficial leaders. You might not have the title, but you are important information sources and resources for your community. So we thank you for your continued commitment to the community and the hard work that you do. You really are all unsung heroes. And thank you for joining us. We ask you to please continue to keep in touch with us because we learn as much from you as we share. So thank you for your candor and sharing concerns. We're taking good notes, we're following up, we're recording this so that we can follow up on these issues. And we want to invite everyone to join us for our next community meeting in the Bronx. It will be held virtually on Tuesday, September 14th. It will have the Bronx residents as our VIPs, but everyone is encouraged to join us and to participate. And then we also have our upcoming CAC meetings, the Community Advisory Committee meetings. Those are roundtable Zoom meetings, if you will, with our CAC members, but we do live stream those meetings so that everyone can hear the important updates and issues that we're discussing. We're going to have those virtually for the rest of the year, and those would be held on Tuesday, October 10th, Tuesday, October 12th, and Tuesday, December 14th. If you have important issues that you want to see addressed at the CAC, please write into the monitors team and let us know. And keep in mind that you don't have to wait for these meetings to communicate with us. Please follow us on the NYCHA Monitor website at nychamonitor.com and email us at monitor@nychamonitor.com. Again, we don't address specific issues in particular apartments. If things are particularly egregious, we do forward those on to NYCHA. We are paying attention to the trends and concerns that are coming in. And for those that aren't website email people, we do have a toll-free number. It's being blocked on my screen by but that is 844-309-6080. Again, 844-309-6080. So please keep in touch with us. And again, thank you for joining us and thank you for your continued commitment to the NYCHA community. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. And thank you to the many members of the monitor team, the senior representatives from NYCHA, Katie Brennan from the deputy monitors team for being on, elected officials. Thank you to our Spanish language interpreter for our community meetings. We will always have a Spanish language interpreter available. And we encourage you to use that service if you'd like. And thank you to our NYCHA resident community team for being behind the scenes and making all these meetings happen, particularly Floretta Hudson and Patricia Gambali and Robert Costello. Many of you have heard from our team. We've been making calls to all of the resident council leaders leading up to this Queen's meeting. And if you didn't hear from us, then perhaps your number might not be up to date or correct. We get the list from NYCHA. And we will be calling all the resident leaders in the Bronx next as we prepare for our next meeting. So thank you all for sharing. Thank you for joining. And I will turn it to Joe Jaffe for any final words and to wrap us up.
The only final words we have are that the efforts everybody makes, everybody who's on the call and everybody behind them is going to be what ultimately will make Nysha successful in its efforts to give everybody who lives in Nysha what they deserve. That's healthy, safe accommodations and housing where you can raise a family and be proud of where you live. So whatever efforts you've expended, please keep expending more efforts because we really need that in order to be successful. And to everybody, including those from Nysha and those from the mayor's office and everybody else, please keep up the efforts. We need to make everything safe and healthy for the people who are on this call and for everybody they represent. Thanks for joining us, folks. We appreciate it.